So, good morning, everyone. My name is Katie Lebeds, and I am here this morning to talk to you about lean leadership in 2026, expectations for modern leaners. If you don't know who I am the president and CEO of a lean consulting firm called Learning to Lean. I'm based out of Hortonville, Wisconsin. I am a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt and Certified Project Management Professional and Emotional Intelligence Coach. I'm also an author. I've written three different books, and I have over 20 years of experience in lean and continuous improvement and project management. And I am so blessed to be able to be here today. I love what I do, and hopefully it comes through with our session today that I am particularly passionate about. So we'll talk more and more about that as we go through today's session. So I am going to turn a poll on in 1 second. But in this poll, I want to understand from you what's the biggest challenge that you're facing or that you know of leaders are facing today. So I'm going to go over and I'm going to turn on the poll. So launch that poll. And you just have to do the first question. So the biggest challenge that leaders are facing today. We'll get to the other questions here in just a second. But if you could answer number one, that would be great. So biggest challenge that leaders are facing today. So from my discussions with many different organizations and many different people. I think everyone is having all of those problems. Everyone is having employee engagement challenges, turnover challenges, most definitely. Some companies worse than others. I share often in my classes that I had two companies within the northeast portion of Wisconsin 2 years ago that had a 92% turnover and a 96% turnover. So that is definitely a huge portion of it for many people. It's hard to find people, especially if you are in an area that's a little bit further away from others, like my friend James here, who's in charge of Cadence in Sturgeon Bay, where it's sometimes can be difficult to be able to find people or people that are willing to do a drive. Productivity is definitely up there. Also, communication. I will tell you that communication comes up in every single class that I teach, and change fatigue. So it looks like we're split right now between employee engagement and turnover, which is primarily what I thought it would be. So let's talk about the leadership shift. Say that 10 times fast. Yesterday's leaders, right? They directed work. We've seen those pictures of like a picture of an older person going like this, right? They directed work. They said, you go do that. They solve problems on their own and or solved other people's problems. Oh, we have a problem. Let's go talk to the boss, right? So the boss will tell us how to fix this problem or how to solve the problem. They had the answers, or they thought that they did, or creating an environment where people had to go to them to get the answers. So people were not empowered in the past to be able to get answers on their own or fix their own problems. It was always, we better check with the boss, right? And somehow being the boss made you the keeper of all the answers, I suppose. So we all know an environment like that, or maybe we still work in an environment like that. The old time leaders controlled decisions, right? So it was definitely a environment where somebody was micromanaging. We all know that, and they had ultimate control. In today's leaders, we need to make sure that we have people that enable work. So enable work, which means not dictating, it's enable people to do their jobs, develop problem solvers and problem preventers. So if you've been in any of my sessions, if you've been in any of my classes, you know that I talk about creating problem solvers and problem preventers. So we need people to know how to solve the problems that we have today, and in turn, not creating new problems in the future, right? So we want people to be able to solve our problems, but please don't make more new ones. And ask better questions. And we'll talk about what questions should we really be asking and build a system that succeeds without heroics. And that's something else that I am extraordinarily passionate about. So, when we look at why leadership must change, let's look around because our workforce has changed. Many organizations are still managing as if it was 1995 or earlier, which leads to frustration and turnover. So I had to look up a picture online of what did the workplace look like in 1995. I can say from my own recollection, I had graduated high school. I took some alternative career paths, did not go necessarily straight to college. I did for a little while and then I dropped out. But I just remember my internship was at EDS, so there will date me a bit, at Pontiac Motor Division in Pontiac, Michigan. I did an internship there, and all I can remember was it was very stuffy. Everybody had to dress appropriately, and I had to wear dress clothes or I had to wear a skirt and heels. And, everybody, there was like no fun at work. And I worked for this awful person named Carol. And my job was to load all of the recall files from the Pontiac Fieros into the system manually. So it was absolutely crazy and just not a fun place to work. Nobody had fun. Nobody smiled. You just came in and did your drudgery job and then went on with the day. So I found this from Purdue online, so I thought this was interesting. Their study noted that this is the first time in history that we have 5 generations in the workplace all at the same time. 5 generations of people in the workplace all at the same time. So let's look at really briefly the differences as we all know. So they call it the traditionalists. So those for many of us would be in my generation, those are my parents. So my mom and dad were born in 40 and 43. So those are the traditionalists, dependable, straightforward, tactful, loyal, communication style. They like, the handshake. They like personal touch, handwritten notes, things like that. Then we have baby boomers, which my husband's a baby boomer. He optimistic, competitive, workaholic, team oriented. The communication style is whatever's the most efficient. They're not really worried about that. So baby boomers are still out in the workplace. Generation X, which is what I am, Generation X, born in 73, flexible, informal, skeptical, I'd say so, and independent. Yeah, I'd say that. Communication style is similar to the one to the baby boomers, whatever works best. And it's interesting being a Generation X, right? We're all told that, we're the ones that were out managing ourselves, managing our own time. Our parents are just like, go out and do whatever you want and come back when the street lights come on, right? You came home from school and you had the key and you were told if, something goes wrong, go to the neighbor's house, right? So that's our generation. Millennials then is the next generation after competitive, civic, and open-minded, achievement-oriented. Now here's where the communication style did a shift, right? So before it was like whatever works best. And now we have shifted to IMs, text, and email. So now there's that's a pretty major shift to go from in-person, face-to-face, we can do whatever, we can write notes, we can come and talk to you, handshake, or if we have to write an email. But now this is all just digital. It is now a huge shift to digital. So they're seeking challenge and growth and development and fun at work. So that's also a difference and also a work-life balance. So 3 generations prior weren't really concerned about that. And then Generation Z, which is our latest generation, up to 2020, they are global, entrepreneurial, progressive, and less focused. Their communication style is social media, text, and IMs. So again, we're still in that digital world. And again, if you think about that type of communication style, right, on social media, they have like 3 seconds to capture your attention, and it really is 3 seconds. So, can you imagine them sitting through a training session and not getting information to be captured within 3 seconds? It's going to be really hard. It's going to be hard to communicate with them when they're used to communicating like this, right? In short sprints, emojis or memes, whatever, right? So Gen Z, and I always have a hard time keeping everybody in place in regards to where you are. I thought this was interesting. 80% of the population that they surveyed for Gen Z believe the government and employers should subsidize, pay full tuition, and provide direct training for students. So, interesting take on the world. So, again, the first time in that we have 5 generations of people who are all very, very different working together in the same place. So we already know this. Employees don't leave jobs, they leave broken processes. Employees don't leave jobs, they leave broken processes. Let's take a look at that. So constant firefighting. So what's a broken process? Having constant firefighting. I will personally say that the word hot means nothing, right? Any company I go to, when somebody's like, it's really hot, that word has lost all meaning whatsoever to all of us, right? Hot or priority, or insert the word here that your company uses, that's just overused. And everything is an emergency, which means we have a broken process. And not everybody knows that. Rework. So if your company has rework, then you have a broken process. I'm sorry to tell you, in the office or in the factory, it doesn't matter where you are. And my question always is, number one, do you track it? If you don't track it, then you don't know the cost of poor quality or the cost of doing business if you don't track this. And what's the root cause of it? You can ask folks that work for you, and they'll say, we see the same thing over and over and over again. Ooh, that should be something that pops in your head that says rework, right? And are we tracking it? Lack of clarity. I'll give you a personal example. There was an individual that I worked for when I worked at Jabil, and we would go to him. He was in supply chain. He would ask for something. I was a business analyst at the time. I was like, okay, I'll go do that for you. And I'd come back, and he would inevitably say, that is not what I wanted. However, he could not express what he wanted. So he had a communication challenge on his side. It wasn't a me thing because other people were just as frustrated. You go off and you do it and you've asked questions and you've outlined it and you've emailed it to him, and he would come back and say, that's not what I wanted. So there's definitely some sort of gap there that needed to be closed. And then poor communication. So it's the number one item where people note where companies can improve. Every single organization that I go to, globally, by the way, so I have companies all over the world. That is the number one item where I ask, how can we improve, or how can we get better at delivering our products or our services to our customers on time? The number one answer is always communication. Always. And internally and externally. My next question for those organizations and for you is, how are you communicating so everyone can understand? So let's talk about learning styles. And if you've taken any classes with me, you know that I go through the different types of learning styles. And sometimes you'll hear people say, oh, that's not applicable anymore. Okay, but we all just learn differently, right? So let me give you an example. Maybe you're working in an industry, and you're really excited to be able to share with everybody that the organization is going to invest in, we'll just say, robots. We're going to invest in robots. It's going to make life easier. It's going to reduce ergonomic strain on people. We'll be able to produce more products faster or better quality, etc. Now, some organizations would send out an email about this. And my question always is, does everyone have email? And the answer is that normally no. Okay, so if those folks that don't have email, how is that communicated to them? Well, their supervisor prints off the email and reads it to them. Well, that's great if your people are auditory learners, but most people are not. That's a small percentage, usually maybe 1 to 3% of the population is an auditory learner. So, if you have verbal learners, visual learners, or kinesthetic learners, they're not going to learn anything from that read the email aloud situation. Some companies like, oh, we have a meeting, we have an all hands meeting, or we have a department meeting, and we show them a PowerPoint presentation. That's great for visual and verbal learners and auditory learners if you're able to ask questions, but not the kinesthetic learners, which is, by the way, the majority of the learners that are out there. They learn by doing. So, what's a better approach? In this circumstance, if I was in charge, I would say we're looking at investing in robots for this particular area. Let's go out to the floor and let's talk about where's the best place to put one. What process would you recommend that we automate through robotics? Or I was thinking about doing it here. What do we all think? Let's go look and go to the Gemba and go and look and see and do. That is going to get everyone to be able to understand what's going on and offer some clarity also. And then Herculean efforts. So, Herculean efforts are happening within your organization, whether you realize it or not. So, what heroic or Herculean efforts are your employees performing every day just to keep things running? And you may think, oh, we're not doing that. Yes, you are. I guarantee you are. Somebody's doing that in your company. That's Sally. That Sally, gosh, she never leaves on time ever. She's always at work. She's there when I get there in the morning and she's there when I leave at night. And, it's Friday. It's a beautiful day. She would never think about leaving early. Hmm. Well, let's look at what Sally's doing. That doesn't mean Sally's doing something wrong. That just might be Sally's doing a lot. I was helping an organization once, and this person who did their production planning was running the plan 4 times a day. And the amount of work that this person was doing was unbelievable. And I said to him, I said, how do you take a vacation day? And somebody else in the room piped up and they said, when he goes on vacation, we have to take 4 people to replace what he does. That's your signal that a Herculean effort is happening. Now, it doesn't happen overnight, it happens quietly and it builds. And then suddenly, this person is doing all of this stuff to be able to allow you to produce a product or service, and you might not know about it. So, what can leaders do to break the cycle? So, we're going to look at 5 different things that leaders can do. So, first one is go to the Gemba. Go to the Gemba. Gemba means go and see where the work is being done. So that means, as I tell my class, get up out of your chair, right? Stand up, stretch your legs, and go and see where the work is being done. So if you work in a service industry, that means you might have to go on site to see where the work is being done. Maybe you're a construction company, maybe you're a roofing company or a cement company. Go and see. Healthcare company, go and see. Now, there's some work that you're like, go and see, but we're all virtual. Okay, then you can do a Teams, share your screen, show me this, show me that. That is still possible, even if you're not physically going to see, you can virtually go to see. But it's important that you go and see, that you ask questions and ask questions nicely. We'll talk about that here in a second. Make sure you observe. You're looking for waste, opportunities for improvement, and areas where we can add value where value doesn't currently exist. So let's go to the Gemba. The next one is ask better questions. So we don't want you to ask, why did you do it that way? Or what happened? How did you screw it up this time? That's not what we want to ask. We want to ask, what process allowed this to happen? What can we do or prevent it from happening again? Right? Those are good questions. What can we do to prevent this from happening again? Or what process allowed this to happen? I've heard from other organizations that, sometimes people will say, hey, I'm having a problem. And, the leader in the area doesn't help them, just tells them to keep going, right? And we want to be able to make sure that we're looking at an environment where it's no fault forward, right? So we don't want to pass bad product on, or a bad part, or a bad XYZ, or bad service on to the next step in the process. So how can we improve our process so that we don't have errors, we don't have issues, and it doesn't happen again, so we're not living in Groundhog Day? Number 3, develop people. So don't solve every problem yourself, right? You don't get a gold star for that. That doesn't make you a more valuable employee, right? It makes you an employee that people have to rely on in order to make decisions. That is not the environment that we want to create anymore. Teach people how to solve problems and allow them to solve them, right? Make sure you allow them to solve them by going to the Gemba. If they come to you with a problem you want to ask, or a solution is more likely, ask them, what problem are you trying to solve? Ask them, have you gone to the Gemba? Did you go and see where the work is being done? Did you ask questions nicely, like the 5 whys? Have we practiced PDCA? So is this an environment that you have created where PDCA is acceptable? And if you don't know what PDCA is, it stands for Plan, Do, Check, Act. So it's a cycle of continuous improvement that allows us to truly understand the problem you're trying to solve, implement a small change, and then evaluate that change to see, did this change solve my problem, or did it make it worse, right? And are we going to make this the permanent solution? If it did solve the problem, great, we update the process. Or if not, we're going to go back through the cycle again and try again. So it has to be the right environment with the right situations to be able to do PDCA. But in general, that's many environments that we can do. And it's okay to try and experiment, even if it doesn't go the way we wanted it to. And of course, we want to gather our data. So we need data to understand what things look like now, so that when we make changes, we understand if we've made things better or worse. Because guess what? We can make them worse. So we need our data to be able to understand if things are better or worse. Now, sometimes people are like, oh, Katie, you talk about this all the time. We can gather data at the end. Maybe, or maybe you've lost that data forever. So make sure you gather your baseline data, what it looks like now. And then as you make changes, whether you're doing a PDCA, an A3, a DMAIC, when you make those changes, that you understand if you've made things better or worse. And then create psychological safety. So I just did a talk about psychological safety about a month ago. And psychological safety, if you don't know what it is creating an environment where people feel comfortable, or people speak up when they feel safe. So they're free of judgment, they're free of criticism, they're free of any sort of repercussions. You know, they say something that's against the boss, right? They're not afraid that they're going to get fired for it, or get put on, you know, the unfavorable jobs, or whatever it may be. You're creating an environment where it's okay to speak up. Improvement dies when people fear blame, right? So nobody's going to bring something up if they think that it's not a safe environment, and somebody will say, well, that's a dumb idea. I was in an environment where, you know, I saw somebody that was really excited, had gotten some of the lean training that we offering, went up to their boss afterwards and said, hey, you know, I have an idea, you know, I think we should try this. I think it'll make better for our customers. And the boss immediately said, we already tried that a few years ago and it didn't work. Whew, suck the wind right out of the room, right? That is not creating a psychologically safe environment, because now that girl is not going to bring up anything else because she just thinks he's going to say no all the time. And do you really know what's happening in your organization? And I can tell you from my own experience that when I'm in organizations and I am with that organization for quite some time, whether that's working with them on a Kaizen event, or we're doing some sort of training, when people start to feel comfortable, they start to tell me what life is really like there. And 99% of the time, the leaders in the organization have no idea that these things are going on. So whether it is an unfavorable experience with another person, or this is the underlying culture, you could be waving your culture flag for your organization and saying, we're doing this, we're so wonderful, we're so great. But sometimes there is that underlying culture or a department culture that's pulling all of that down. And if you don't have a psychologically safe environment, then you won't have people coming to tell you, hey, this is what's going on. So when I'm there, I'm fortunate enough that many companies and many people will come up and tell me, hey, just so you know, this is what's really happening. And removing barriers. So a leader's job isn't to manage work. A leader's job is to remove obstacles preventing success. And I talk about that in project management too. When you're a project manager, your project champion or project sponsor is there to remove the roadblocks. We go to them and say, hey, project's going well, except I can't get this or I can't get that, or this is what's happening and I need your help. That's a leader's job, is to remove the roadblocks, right? So remove the roadblocks or change direction if we have to. You're not there to solve their problems for them. They are hired because you have already known how to hire smart people. Let them do their job. So, what are great organizations doing? So, let's talk about that. They train leaders and train them differently. So, they train leaders and train them differently. So, what do I mean by that? So, a leader in an organization, first of all, can be anyone. But we want to make sure that we are looking at leaders and organizations as people that can truly lead people, not those people that do a really good job at what they do. And so we'll make them a leader, a supervisor, whatever you want to call them. So just because you're a great engineer, just because you're a great business analyst, just because you are a great nurse, doesn't mean you're going to be a great leader of people, right? And sometimes we all know organizations that do that. Gosh, you're so outstanding. You should be the supervisor of this area. And you're like, what? That person should not be leading people. So we want to make sure that we train leaders and train them differently. So if you have a situation where maybe this is a development opportunity for that person, and they're a great XYZ, and you want them to now be the leaders of the XYZ, you need to train them how to be a leader, not just because they did a good job. Teach structured problem solving. So we offer Lean Six Sigma white belt training, yellow belt training, green belt, black belt training. We also offer smaller training just to be able to say, how can we solve problems, right? How can we create a measurable problem statement? You don't need a belt for that, right? How can we understand truly the problem we're trying to solve? How can we do root cause analysis? How do we gather data to be able to make decisions? Those are all things that we can help you with. And develop lean champions. So I am a huge proponent of this. So if you are new or established in your organization for lean and continuous improvement, you're probably a person of one. Many companies just have one person, if one, that is leading that charge. And I always believe that one person is fine, but more is better. But we need people that are boots on the ground to help us with deploying these concepts within an organization. So I often advocate for a lean champion group. So what does that mean? Lean champions are people that have been trained on lean concepts and maybe get the first training for lean concepts. They're the ones that are out there saying, lean is great, lean is good. Let me show you how to create a measurable problem statement. Let me help you with that PDCA. They are not generally called lean champions as a project title. It's just something else that they do along with their normal work. So they may lead Kaizen events. They may do informal training. They may be the one that's like, you know what? Here's our pack of Post-it notes. Let's do an affinity diagram. And they know how to do that. Because you're a lean person in your organization can't be everywhere all the time. And also, it's okay for companies to start off with a lean champion group and you think, hey, it's this group of people. By the way, it doesn't have to be a supervisor, it can be anybody. And maybe that group changes over time, and that's cool too. I expect it to change. When I worked at Plexus, we created the Lean Innovators Group, the LIG group. Great group of people that honestly got formed because I was new to the organization. I was listening in on our calibration session and I continued to hear this person's passionate about lean. This person really likes continuous improvement. So that was the start of 12 people being part of the LIG team. And people came and went over time, but that was okay. But they were the ones that really helped to support and drive lean in an organization. And as you can tell, I'm passionate about it and I love talking about it and how it helps organizations. Building CI into your daily work. And I have an example to show you here in a second. So that's what great organizations and leaders are doing. CI everywhere, every day, and encouraging it and not just treating it as the flavor of the day, but really ingraining it into the DNA of your organization. And measure culture, not just performance. So if you are ISO 9000, 9001 certified, this year you have to measure culture. So how are we going to measure culture, a lean culture in your organization? It just does not mean that, oh my gosh, we keep track of scrap and rework and on-time delivery. That does not measure your culture. What measures your culture is when there's a problem, how do people solve it? One of the cool parts, Toyota is fantastic. They have lots of great ideas, some of which work in some other industries, sometimes they don't. However, the one thing that I always talk about in our classes is Toyota has a culture that when somebody pulls the cord, right, stops a production line, that what happens is that everybody runs to them to help them. Don't you want to work in an organization like that? Where I raise my hand or essentially pull a cord and say, you know what, I'm having a problem. I need help. And there are people there immediately. They're like, what can we do to help? Not, how did you screw it up? Or just keep running, it'll work itself out. Or, oh, here we go again. No, they're all there saying, how can I help? What a great culture that would be to work in. So I have permission to share this information. So this is leader standard work for Green Bay Packaging to Peer Shipping Container. This is from their CI lead. They do this as an organization every single day. So all of their leaders in the organization have this leader standard work. So if you go there, they probably have a piece of paper with them or a clipboard that they're using or electronically. They follow leader standard work on a day-to-day basis. So all their leaders do this. So you have daily tasks and weekly tasks and monthly. They have their priorities and their meetings, what they're doing for today, their to-do list, any new hires. On the backside are daily tasks and weekly tasks. It depends on what type of leader you are, a production manager or a shift lead. So it has all of those things. And then their cultural values down on the bottom right: do the right thing, find a better way, own your impact, and build commitment. So I think this is fantastic. They do a great job, and they started this when we started their lean journey with them 3 years ago. This is also another one that I was provided also. That's another organization. This is their leader standard work. Obviously, there's more typing and more handwriting in here. So you have to do what works well for you, if that works well for you. Sometimes people believe that lean or leader standard work is overpopulated or overpopularized, but you have to figure out what works best for you. And so here's just some examples to be able to look at. So I just want you to consider this. So instead of saying, why can't my employees do better? I want you to ask, what is it about our leadership system that makes improvement harder than it should be? What is it about our leadership system that makes improvement harder than it should be? So I appreciate you coming to today's class. This is just a snapshot out of our website. Our services, if you're interested, are leadership lean assessment. So we can come in and take a look at how you're doing from a leadership perspective. Of course, lean champion training and leadership coaching. We do site assessments. We do any of the belt certifications in person or virtual. We do have a virtual black belt kicking off on Monday, and project management consulting and training, and of course, Kaizen events. So whatever industry you're in, we have supported all of them, which is really cool because there are very few things in life that you can say, no matter what industry you belong to, these things can help you. So I was talking to somebody the other day and they were sharing with their family about this, and with a young person, like, oh, mom, that's old school. Well, yeah, it's been around for a long time, but it works. So why not use the things that we know that have worked? Has it changed over time? Yes, it absolutely has changed over time. And I think the inclusion of talking about things like psychological safety is an indicator that we are changing with the trends that are happening now with those 5 generations that we're all working with. So thank you for coming to today's session. If you haven't done the rest of the poll, I'm looking at it right now. So I spend time at the Gemba. So the majority of you do. So you said yes. I ask more than I tell. You all said yes. Very good. Employees bring me ideas and I listen openly. Yes. And working on it. I coach instead of solve. So we had 50% of the people say yes. 25 said no, and 25 said working on it. I remove barriers quickly. Most of you said yes, and some are working on it. And which area would create the biggest impact if you improved it tomorrow? Gamba was the first one, which was tied with removing barriers quickly. So that's really interesting. Gamba is one that you can implement immediately, right? And it doesn't cost you anything but a little bit of time. So make sure though, when you're doing Gamba, that you're creating an environment where people are relaxed. People are willing to be able to come and talk to you, not, oh my gosh, the supervisor's on the floor, or the manager or director or whatever, and people get nervous. It used to be when I walked on the floor, if you carried a clipboard, people were like, oh my God, we're being audited. When I worked at Jabil, visitors wore white smocks and employees wore blue smocks. So I always had a blue smock with me because I didn't want to be looked at as a visitor. I wasn't a visitor, I worked for the company. So there's all these things that you have to consider when you go and do that. But I hope that you work on it. If you need help with being able to do any of this, please contact us today. And I look forward to seeing you for next month's free training session, and enjoy the rest of your beautiful Friday. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, James. Good to see you.
Yeah. All right, guys, have a wonderful weekend.
You too.